Welcome to Day Zero Update for November 10th, 2024. I'm your host, Chris Elogi.
And I'm Brandon Perkins.
And yeah, just a two-man crew, but there's a decent amount of news this week.
Yep.
In spite of the election and all that going on. A number of other things got announced. Not really too much in the way of things coming out in the near future, but some other stories of notes, especially a number from Nintendo and Sega, making big news in the industry this week. So that's got some good and some bad stuff in there. But we got a handful of other things out there, but yeah, nothing really like super huge here. But that's going to happen because we're going into the holiday season, so people are just going to be working throughout the rest of this year, and various companies are waiting for their ability to announce stuff during the Game Awards or whatever they're doing the rest of this year, or just chilling for the people that don't have anything coming out anytime soon. So
Yep.
But yeah, before we get to that news, we'll be talking about what we've been playing, and I'll kick it off here. I managed to get Mario and Luigi Brothership. Played about 7 hours or so at this point. And I would say it is like a Mario and Luigi game with a good touch of One Piece to it. So the core conceit here is that Mario and Luigi are just kind of chilling out, and these weird like void tornadoes kind of show up that kind of suck them into this void to another world. And along with that, you find out that some others manage to get sucked in as well. Unsurprisingly, that they might go after other people that you may know from the Mushroom Kingdom. But mainly where I'm at, it's been Mario and Luigi and some Toads that have shown up. But along the way, you kind of show up on this island, and as you're kind of exploring it, you come to the end of it, where you are essentially running into this thing called the I think it's the ship shape or shape ship. I forget what the specific name of it is, but it's a island that is kind of in the shape of a ship that is floating out here in this ocean in this world. And you find out that it is a part of this former landmass called Concordia that was where all of these people you run into have come from. Some disasters happened to the I forget what they call it, the unit tree or something like that, the big tree in the middle of it that was like a source of power to all of the different islands that surrounded it, or land that surrounded it, that then broke up into islands that are just floating around in this sea. I think there's 5 seas they have you on. I'm still in the first one, and as far as I can tell, you're probably going to run into I think they have the way they've broken it up is there's 4 lighthouses, great lighthouses that were where the tree sent its power to, and that stuff is what you use to connect to these islands that you run across. You're essentially running up and kind of connecting them to the mini version of the tree that you have on the ship, on the shape ship, whatever the hell the name is of that thing. But when they connect to it, they're essentially always available to travel to, so that you can go back and clean up side stuff that you missed or things that get added to do. So I have 3 different islands I've been sort of bouncing around along with the shape ship, doing various side things. Interestingly, they kind of have 2. You go to the first one, which is called Rumbla, where you find this lady named Wilma, I believe, who has lost her 2 kids who are sort of makers of sorts. They make equipment for you, and they kind of give you a choice of going for either island that they are on,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, "Oh, this will change the story." I don't think it's changing it much, other than you go to one and they have the story for, you know, finding them first, and then what you're gonna do to go get the other one,
Mm.
um, and how that all goes together. So, yeah, it's been good so far. I'm heading towards the first Great Lighthouse, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is they're introducing new mechanics,
Mm-hmm.
and they kind of do that very slowly in an unfortunate way. And I'm talking about like you don't get to pause the game for at least a good like 45 minutes to an hour into the game, because they don't want you to see the map or whatever is
Mm.
on there, the map and like the gear screen and all that kind of stuff. They just don't even let you do things with these buttons until they're ready for you to see them,
Mm.
uh, which is like you don't have to handhold that much, but that's uh, that's where they're coming from. I guess assuming that a lot of people that are going to play this have not played the previous games, which is probably a
Mm.
fair assumption.
Yeah.
Because those were all on handhelds and usually came out at weird times and didn't necessarily hit big for
Mm-hmm.
any of them. Um, but yeah, there's a number of big changes or notable changes that I would say has kind of thrown me off from what
Mm-hmm.
I've expected out of this game. And so you've played some of the previous games, Brandon?
No, actually, I never got to the Mario Luigi games, believe it or not.
Okay. The core way that you controlled those games is that you had Mario leading with Luigi behind him, and you would hit A to jump with Mario and
Mm-hmm.
B to jump with Luigi. And here they
Mm.
don't do that. Um, that kind of I can see why they did this change, because you would essentially be climbing up like stairs. Like, all right, jump up, Mario's here, and then got to hit Luigi, so he gets up on that same step, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or you get good at hitting both at the same time and
Mm.
just mashing it until they're all the way up on the same place, kind of
Yeah.
thing. Luigi kind of follows behind just with AI,
Mm-hmm.
jumps on his own and all that, um, which has some issues with it, particularly in some of the platforming segments where I've had Luigi fall off.
Mm.
Uh, Not necessarily because his AI was bad, but me trying to grab coins instead of doing it with Mario, did it with Luigi and he fell off the platform. And
Mm.
because he got further away as this platform moved around, it pulled Mario off the platform.
Mm.
And so I had to go all the way back around to get back up to where I was. I've had that happen a couple of times where if they're too far apart, they stop what you're doing and either pull you back towards Luigi or you wait until Luigi catches up to you, kind of
Mm.
thing, uh, which feels like a shitty thing to do. Not necessarily that the solution would be to like block Luigi from falling off of anything, but they kind of have that kind of vibe around him in this game.
Mm.
Because one of the core mechanics is that Luigi has ideas about how to do things, so they call it Luigi logic, complete with a cool little exclamation point that has the little hook on it for the L,
Mm.
that shows up a bunch, as he's like, "Well, how are we gonna get across this gap?" And it's like, "Oh, he's come up with an idea." It's not the way they've done it in previous games, where they kind of get up on the shoulders of the other one and do like a whirling helicopter kind of thing. Um,
Mm.
this time they hold hands like they're about to do like a ballroom dance, and then
Mm-hmm.
just spin aggressively in a circle to like a UFO kind of shape and go
Mm.
across a gap. And it eventually fizzles out when you get across the gap, or you fall down if you don't get across in time.
Mm.
Um, and you kind of stay locked into that after you do that. So you kind of have to hit a button to undo that, which is whatever. That's not really an issue, but you can just kind of stay locked into this weird little mode, as you're walking around, but you can't do anything in it. You can't jump or anything. So
Mm.
it's just a weird little thing. You hit the right stick in one of the directions to get out of that, and like it's up to get out of whatever mode you're in. like you hit right on the right stick to go
Mm.
into that mode. So I assume there's 2 other forms they'll go into at some point, but that now opens up some gaps that I've been through
Mm.
for that. And yeah, they play around with a lot of that stuff, and it's got your basic JRPG since you can jump and all that. You can jump on enemies' heads to start a fight, and that you'll do damage to them right away.
Mm-hmm.
For that, you also have a hammer that you get pretty quickly to do the same thing if you hit them from behind,
Mm-hmm.
um, or whenever. From behind, I think you get some initial move stuff you can do early on.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you get hit from behind, you let the enemies do stuff first. Um, and yeah, the combat's the second thing that has really kind of messed with my muscle memory of the previous games,
Mm.
because of the way those worked in similar fashion. Uh, the combat menus, Mario would be hitting A button to confirm what he wants to do and do it, and Luigi would do B. Whereas here they've changed that so that you hit A for all the menu stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then for Luigi you would switch to B when his attack comes up.
Mm-hmm.
As you're doing it, kind of a Paper Mario style. You're hitting it at specific times to do the max amount of damage. Or uh, what's fun is you can kind of, if you know you're going to kill him anyway, just kind of goof up on parts of the attacks to see how that all works out,
Mm.
because you still do damage. Hopefully enough to kill him, but you get to see some fun, goofy stuff with
Mm.
that. Um, all the attacks so far that I've seen usually are multi-part, where if you're doing a jump, it's a 3-part thing. So you hit, Mario hits the A button, then Luigi, and then Mario to finish off the
Mm-hmm.
attack kind of thing, and you do vice versa for Luigi.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the muscle memory I have for this, I mess up Luigi's maybe like 10% of the time, 10 to 15% of the time,
Mm-hmm.
just enough to be annoying, but it doesn't really affect anything because it's not a challenging game yet
Mm-hmm.
for any of that stuff. But it's just kind of like weird that they made this change, and I understand because they're expecting to have a bunch of new people playing this that don't have that muscle memory or expectation of
Mm.
it controlling weird. But it is
Yeah.
kind of weird to make that change because
Mm.
now I'm just hitting the A button a bunch like a normal JRPG and just fucking up Luigi's when I forget. Every once in a while, it's like, oh yeah, I'm supposed
Mm.
to hit B for his stuff. Um,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the other annoying change. The one that's more consequential, but so far it hasn't really affected anything.
Yeah.
And they evolve that over time, where you
Mm-hmm.
start with the basic jump attacks, and then you get the hammer that can do
Mm-hmm.
more attacks, and then you get the start getting special items. So I have shells, red and green shells.
Yeah.
That similarly, you're swapping back and forth between A and B to hit them. Um, Mario's shell attack does damage to one enemy. Luigi's does it to all of them. So that's a good way to kind of potentially finish off a group of enemies.
Mm-hmm.
But that uses your equivalent of mana points, which are called, I think, battle points, BP.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's been the game in a nutshell. Basically, running through these areas, doing fights, doing some light puzzle stuff. Nothing's really been too challenging on that front. It's a lot of just puzzle platformery type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there has been one good bit where you essentially have these like seesaw type of puzzles, trying to get can plant Luigi on one side to uh, hold it down, and then you run across and jump off the other side to get up onto higher ledges, that kind of stuff. And you get an opportunity to do that while you're holding a statue,
Mm-hmm.
and you launch Luigi into the air so high that Mario starts looking around like, "What's going on?" Uh, and then it shows the passage of time, and eventually he lands where he's supposed to. But it's a good bit of, "Oops, I had way too much weight," and he just went flying up into the air for way longer than you thought.
Mm-hmm.
They have some good bits like that. Story wise, it's been pretty um, standard stuff. Really, you're trying to
Mhm.
help these people that have been talking to you and asking you for help to essentially get each of these islands linked up to the ship. And as you're going around, the neat thing is you're kind of actually traveling on the ocean in these seas, and they have currents that are
Mhm.
specific paths. So um, as you're physically doing stuff, you see a little mini map of the currents of the ship kind of traveling these. So
Mhm.
you can just kind of have it traveling over to other currents, and you go off to an island to do some side stuff or whatever, and sort of it'll tell you like, oh, you're reaching this current, or there's a new island or something to check out, so you can run back to the ship to.
Mhm.
Um, the way they do it is they launch you out of a cannon, Mario and Luigi out of a cannon. They do not enjoy it at any point.
Mhm.
Um, they have a good animation for that where uh, they are completely surprised every single time and are not enjoying the process of getting scooped up into this cannon to be shot out into an island.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's a pretty solid game so far.
Mhm.
Definitely has some issues, and like with the whole mechanic of having to shoot Luigi and Mario off to an island. You kind
Mhm.
of had one moment where I had to literally just set the switch down and
Mhm.
wait a few minutes for it to get to where I needed to go.
Mhm.
You don't have any like fast forward options for any of that stuff. You literally
Mhm.
just have to wait, which is a little bit disappointing. There's no accessibility options, no quality of life options here for any of this stuff. So it leads to a lot of that kind of stuff. The combat can get a little bit annoying at times just because you're seeing the same animations over and over again, and
Yeah.
it's like it would be nice to have a fast forward option to get through the inconsequential stuff,
Mm.
especially because like some of there's a lot of good animations to this, but you end up seeing them dozens of times.
Mhm.
That kind of just makes it like, all right, I've seen this before. If I could skip it or whatever, that'd be nice, but and I feel like you're wasting a bunch of time. But I don't suspect this is a super long game, maybe like 30, 40 hours,
Mhm.
just based on what I've done so far. But maybe it picks up at a certain point. But right now, it's just been kind of a more chill pace game,
Mm.
um, which is nice. There's good music and all that. You got Mario doing a lot of fake Italian babble as
Mhm.
he's paraphrasing what he's saying to characters. With like the main stuff you hear him say is like Luigi and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else. You get leveling up every 7 levels. You get to pick a special stat bonus thing.
Mhm.
It's usually some boost to one of your stats, or opens up like another skill slot you can do. Or I think the first one I picked for both is increased XP earning to make that a little bit faster. But you can open up another like gear slot
Mm.
to equip another accessory. But it's like it hasn't been hard to get the coins to upgrade equipment, get new equipment to upgrade your stats.
Mm.
There's a lot of opportunities for that stuff. And the fun thing with the Luigi logic is that there's a lot of little things you can boxes to break with the hammers and such.
Mhm.
And you can just have Luigi do it,
Yeah.
uh, and that's fun. Um, so you have to be careful not to run far away from him, or else he just stops doing what he's doing. Or you like
Mm.
talk to somebody, he can't just keep doing that. He has to be nearby to converse with people or shopkeepers or whatever. So,
Mm.
um, but yeah, it's easy to get coins, and you can make Luigi do all the labor. So there you
Mhm.
go for that. That's a pretty good game. Could be better, especially on the accessibility or quality of life stuff.
Mm.
Because the only options is for Rumble. That's it.
Yeah.
No audio options, no brightness, no nothing. That's just you want Rumble or not, and
Mhm.
that's all. So yeah, there's Mario and Luigi Brothership. That's your JRPG of the month.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been playing some other stuff. Farming Survivors and Andromeda Survivors are two Vampire Survivors clones I've played a little bit of.
Mm-hmm.
They came out on PlayStation, I think in the past couple of months,
Mm-hmm.
but they finally went on sale. So I've checked them both out. They end up being both published by the same company, but I think they're made by different teams.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're published by a group called Afil Games, AFIL, and they're both all right. Farming Survivors is kind of your basic Brotato kind of game, where you have your weapons kind of hovering around you.
Mm-hmm.
The big difference here is instead of them hovering in like the corners of your character model, they are just constantly rotating around you.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is that they have special abilities outside of their main attacks that use
Mm-hmm.
the four shoulder buttons to do,
Mm-hmm.
and them rotating means they are constantly changing the way they're aiming for whatever you're doing. It has auto aim, so it's like constantly shifting around. You kind of just let it go in the general direction for the ones that I've been doing. You pick up weapons that are basically um, farming style tenements, rakes and chainsaws and leaf blowers and stuff like that. Some very basic stuff that
Mm-hmm.
are like things you might find in a tool shed kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you get a new one every season, and
Mm-hmm.
basically the whole run is going through all four seasons and beating the boss in each one. Um, it seems very much like a trophy game because um, all I needed to get all of the achievement or the trophies was just basically beating one run. Because you basically do everything it asks throughout the course of a run. It's a lot of just dashing a bunch. You dash through bushes, which bushes could be pumpkins in the fall season, to corn
Mm-hmm.
stalks or trees, that kind of stuff. It changes, and there's treasure chests as well that can, like like Brotato, you get like crates that will give you extra uh, perks that you can get, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And they operate similarly here. So all the trophies are basically do this thing X amount of times, find
Mm-hmm.
this thing X amount of times, and one for beating. Weird enough, it has one for beating a boss and completing a chapter or a season, which are the same thing. Because you beat the boss and you move to the next season, and it's like, oh, okay, you gave two trophies for the same thing. All right, congratulations. I don't think you can do one or not the other, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I basically had to do like 3 runs on the PS5 version. Um, one because I didn't necessarily get how it was playing. Second time, did well and got to the last boss and died there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which the winter boss is a praying mantis, because of course it doesn't make any sense. But um, then the third time I beat the game, had all the other stuff done, and was done with the game.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably play through the PS4 version and get more trophies there. Andromeda Survivors, as you might guess, is a space themed one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you're controlling a ship, and this is one that has auto aim and auto shoot as toggleable options. So you can play it like a dual stick shooter
Mm-hmm.
if you want. And you can also have it just auto aim and auto shoot and just move around and focus on dodging shots from enemy ships. They kind of move at a specific pace where they're kind of like moving a spot every second kind of thing. So you get a little bit of a stopping point to get shots in. Nothing really too complicated there. You get XP coming in from taking out enemy ships and comets or asteroids or whatever that are floating
Mm-hmm.
around. Um, and as you level up, you pick perks, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, pretty basic. This is the tougher of the two. There's a trophy for surviving for 5 minutes, and I've not gotten that yet after like several runs. So that's
Mm-hmm.
one that seems more focused on grinding out
Mm-hmm.
upgrades and such. Like Farming Survivors didn't have any like upgrades between runs.
Mm-hmm.
You just collected coins to unlock harder difficulties, and you didn't even spend the points or the coins on it. It's just like, oh, you got 1200, so here you go. Here's the harder difficulty, and then 1600 for the highest difficulty. But here in Andromeda Survivors, it has a proper
Mm-hmm.
upgrade for the various stats as well as some of the abilities you can pick up in a run, that kind of stuff. Um, Pretty basic game, but pretty challenging and a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more going on than Farming Survivors, where that's like one where I could get the platinum in less than an hour. Andromeda Survivors might take a couple hours, but be too much harder. The big issue for at least the PS5 version is that it's partially broken. Where I launched the game and it pops up like maybe like 50% of the time an error screen of some bug that prevents it from launching. And so I have to go through the process of sending in error reports and then um, trying again. And it usually works like the second or third time. Um, and that's pretty annoying. The PS4 version doesn't seem to have that bug, but the PS5
Mm-hmm.
version does. So that's just weird. So I'd maybe not recommend it just on that front of it just being kind of broken. But if you can get past that, it's a decent enough game. But there's better ones in this genre, so I wouldn't really recommend it unless you're just morbidly curious about that stuff and willing to spend a few bucks on it when it's on sale. So those are the two games, the Vampire Survivors genre I've been playing between Vampire Survivors runs, and then also been playing some more American Truck Sim, finishing up their Arkansas event, delivering stuff to each of the cities in the states, enjoying that, and I'm working on their Halloween event called Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm about halfway through that one for stuff it needs, but I've got till next week, so I don't necessarily need to rush. But
Mm-hmm.
been just driving around the
Hmm.
U.S., the western half of the U.S., and enjoying that. So that's been pretty much all I've been doing. So how about you, Brandon? What have you been doing?
Well, as for me, I have finally seriously playing God of War, the 2018 reboot of the series, because I had been sort of pecking at it and sort of false starting it like at least half a dozen times. And for whatever reason, something always comes up, or something new, some new title comes along that ends up, taking up my time or whatever. But I'm actually like at a point now where, because money's kind of tight and I got a huge backlog of stuff I still got to play, I'm going back and deciding to go through all that. And yeah, God of War 2018, really, really damn good. I like I said when we were recording last weekend, I played the original God of War trilogy back in the day when it was originally releasing. And the thing about Kratos you have to remember is that back in the day, Kratos was like the epitome of the edgy, angry, all destructive, roaring rampage of revenge type character that sort of became just sort of an archetype for, early 2000s gaming. And to see that he not only did they decide to reboot the series in a completely different, like mythological sort of mythos, but actually gave him an enormous amount of character development, because this is Kratos now coming to terms with the fact that he's basically going to have to be a single father. And I will say this about this game. Part of the reason why it took me so many times to really get into this is the fact that compared to the original trilogy, this game basically starts off very slowly. And I mean, it's for a reason. It's because he's literally, constructing the funeral pyre for his late wife. And it's not until a little ways into it that the like real action suddenly sets up. But once it does, the game suddenly opens up a great deal. One of the things that's like especially different about this game is the combat is completely different. In the original trilogy, you know, his primary weapons were the Chaos Blades, which were this pair of swords that he wielded around that were connected to these long lengths of chain that he would wrap around his wrist, and he could essentially spin the blades around, you know, willy-nilly like he needed. In the reboot games, he is armed with a different weapon called the Leviathan Axe, which was which was built by the two dwarves that originally constructed Thor's hammer, and it has a lot of similarities to Thor's hammer, with the exception that whereas, you know, Thor's hammer, you know, focuses on thunder and lightning, his the Leviathan Axe focuses more on snow and ice. But otherwise, it operates more or less the same way. It's incredibly hard. It can cut through just about everything. And when it's thrown, it will return afterwards at a command. And actually, a lot of the combat in this game is based around Kratos throwing that axe and then calling it back to him. Because the axe will basically stick to any surface that, you know, an axe could, you know, possibly stick to. You know, if it's something like, you know, hard steel or something, or like really, really thick ice, it'll just bounce off. But otherwise, it'll pin itself into a surface and then it'll call back. And the thing is, if it goes through, you know, an enemy, you know, it'll stick to it. And when you call it back, it'll, you know, give like a second round of damage because you're literally tearing a hole out of them. But if you end up missing them, but it ends up coming through a surface, sticking to a surface, you can call it back and it'll actually hit them the second time around. So yeah, it's like there's a lot going on. For the record, you do eventually get the Chaos Blades again, but it's well into the main campaign that you do. But yeah, that game is really awesome. I think I'm actually getting like fairly close towards the end of it. But yeah, other than that, I'm playing Art's Dream, that's one of the games that comes built into Media Molecule's Dreams game creator program thingy. And I actually played it back when Dreams first came out years ago. And I wanted to go back and play it again because I just wanted to. I just felt like it. And I kind of forgot like how that game, that particular game, it essentially goes all over the place when it comes to game styles, because the bulk, at least, of like the story of the game is based around like a point and click adventure game. But it also has parts of it where it'll go into like a platformer, and then it'll be like a shooter, like a twin stick shooter, and then it'll turn into a rhythm game and just all these different things. Because the whole point was to try and show like all the stuff that, you know, the Dreams program itself could do with the materials provided. Now, obviously, this is because, you know, it was made by professional developers with a professional team. But yeah, it's still pretty good. It's still as entertaining as I remember it being when it originally released. And last but not least, I am playing Metal Max Returns. Specifically, I'm playing the ROM version here on my PC. I've talked about the Metal Max series a couple times, both on here and on Let's Weekend. But basically, this was a JRPG series that was originally published by Data East back in the day, and it was essentially sort of like a combination of Mad Max with tanks, essentially. And Metal Max Returns is actually like the Super Famicom remake of the original Metal Max, which came out on the original Famicom back in, I think it was 1991. And so it redoes a lot of the graphics and streamlines a lot of the gameplay. Part of what makes this series so fascinating and so fun, well, a couple of things really. One is the fact that there's the use of the tanks. Now you don't have to use a tank the whole time, but it does get to a point where some of the battles are impossible without it. But essentially, you have your character, which you can, level up and equip and whatever. But eventually, you do get access to a tank, and you use that tank to move around, to get around certain terrain that you typically can't walk on. It also gives you additional weaponry that's more powerful, but because it's a machine, that means it can break down on occasion. So maintenance is kind of a thing that's required. But what's also really fascinating about it is how really open-ended it is. And understand, this was a time when open-endedness in not just JRPGs, but video game RPGs in general was almost unheard of. You could go through this game and miss a whole lot of it if you're not out actively looking for it. But yeah, that's what I'm playing. So yeah.
All right, so yeah, let's get to some news.
Mm-hmm.
And first up here, Game Pass has their lineup here for the near future.
Mm-hmm.
For the middle of November, and yeah, they got some decent stuff here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as we mentioned last week, Metal Slug Tactics is on there for Game Pass Ultimate and PC Game Pass.
Yep.
Let's see what else is already on there. Go Mecha Ball for console is on Game Pass Standard.
Mm-hmm.
As of November 6th. Harold Halibut is also on Game Pass Standard for people to check out. Let's see. Also, The Rewinder, now on Game Pass Standard. It's a 2D puzzle adventure game inspired by traditional Chinese folklore.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's see. Turnip Boy Robs a Bank, also on Game Pass Standard. So those are some solid games to check out if you just have Game Pass Standard.
Mm-hmm.
If you're one of the few that have just that specific service.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. For Game Pass Ultimate, Goat Simulator Remastered for PC and Xbox. So yeah, that's the remaster of the original Goat Simulator.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm sure makes it run way better
than
the original did. So yeah, you can check that out. And that seems it for stuff that's available now. The weirdly enough, they kind of put a few down here at the bottom. For let's see, Botany Manor was added to Game Pass Standard. So you can check that one out. That's a cool sort of chill adventure game. And yeah, then also for Game Pass Ultimate and PC Game Pass, StarCraft Remastered and StarCraft 2 Campaign Collection. I did start up StarCraft 2 on it requires you to go to BattleNet to install it, and then make sure it's linked up with your Xbox account and all that. I already own the first two of the trilogy, so I had access to it. Interesting thing I found out is there's a general chat, and this was on the 6th, so people were talking about what you think they would be arguing about on the internet, which was the election in Israel and Gaza, which was more liberal than I was expecting, and then a bunch of shitty people's joined the chat, and I've had to figure out how to block people, and then I just turned it off entirely, because I'm like, I don't need to see this bullshit. So, but I played a couple missions on that. That's pretty neat. But yeah, so those you can check out. I believe the multiplayer for StarCraft 2 is now free to play. I don't know if that's available at the moment or not, but I believe this collection here is just the campaign stuff. And yeah, StarCraft Remastered is the remastered edition. I believe the original edition is also available for free if you want to check that out. So you can do that. So yeah, some decent stuff there. And then the new thing that's coming up is not even available for this week. Weird. Everything else here has been out by now. But the next thing they have listed on here is for the 19th of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, which is for Game Pass Ultimate and PC Game Pass, because that'll be on PC and Xbox. That'll be interesting to see as sort of their upgraded version of Flight Simulator that came out a few years ago, but
Mm-hmm.
has more stuff in it, upgrades to a lot of the tech behind it. I believe you're not really downloading as much data up front. So they're going to stream that in to you as you go,
Mm-hmm.
which there's been a lot of chatter about potentially how much bandwidth that takes up
Mm-hmm.
for people with data caps and all that. And it sounds like a really questionable thing, but hey, when they're trying to simulate like the entire surface of the planet for all of this stuff, I guess that's the way you got to go because that's a lot of data either way. But yeah, but that's still when is that? That is the Tuesday after next, so
Mm-hmm.
that's a ways off. But some neat stuff there. Not really anything too amazing, but Microsoft Flight Sim will be pretty cool to check out. Maybe the PC installer is supposed to be much better than the one for the last game
Mm-hmm.
because that was terrible. Your textbook terrible PC game installer experience. So there you go on that front. But yeah, for other updates, No Man's Sky has a new update, as is it wants to do every so often. This is going alongside the PS5 Pro coming out this past week. So they added a bunch of upgrades for that version of the game. I think it can actually run at 8K, not actual 8K, but an upscaled version of that runs at 30 FPS. For 4K people, it'll run at 4K, 60 FPS, and all that, and has options for different things,
Mm-hmm.
all of that kind of stuff. A lot of those options will be and improvements will be happening on PSVR 2 as well.
Mm.
But also the big thing is that they've added cross save support for this between all versions: PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series X and S, the Game Pass versions, GOG, Switch, Steam Deck, PlayStation VR, PSVR 2, and PC VR. We'll be able to support crossplay and cross save between all of those platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, it's been a lot of work, as they say here. Adding the ability to transfer saves between platforms via a server is especially difficult for No Man's Sky, as you have to account for, say, if you had a save from the launch of the game, how do you translate the data there to a modern version of the game on a different platform? And it probably just tells you to go fuck off, but they apparently have figured out a way to make it work. So yeah, allow people to kind of travel between platforms as needed, and that is a good move for them. That are requiring people to start over if they get it on a different platform. So I think a lot of people do that because they don't remember what they were doing. Probably just fucking around, but a lot of people end up just starting new ones to see all the new stuff because you're never guaranteed see that stuff wherever you leave off. So, but there you go, some cool No Man's Sky news.
Mm.
Any other bit of news here is that Death Stranding released on Xbox out of nowhere.
Yep.
Let's see, it's on Xbox Series X and S. It might also be on Xbox One. I'm not sure,
Mm.
but I believe they just released the director's cut, so it might just be Series X and S. It's on $20 for the launch period, and yeah, for the 5th anniversary here. Mostly because it seems like Kojima Productions has acquired the rights from Sony for the franchise, so they can kind of put it out wherever. At least this original game, which I think is just part of the deal. I'm going to assume at a certain point they were given the ability to acquire the rights back if they wanted to, and they seem very much to make that a priority for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe the Xbox game OD is also owned by Kojima Productions, and
Mm-hmm.
I assume at some point Death Stranding 2 on the beach will also be on Xbox and PC at some point, but for now that is published by Sony. So yeah, cool for if you've been not enjoying the election stuff. This is a game to go into and just let yourself vegetate here in a weird world where a whole weird thing has happened to the entire U.S. and you are traveling and delivering packages across the country and running into a lot of weird shit and trying to quote unquote connect the country and all that. And that's a fun weird game that people should definitely check out if they have not done so yet. So yeah, there you go. One of the weirdest things that's happened this week. Yeah. Let's see. This is another cool thing that was announced. If you remember back at E3 2003, one of the biggest events then was Halo 2's big trailer demo, showing off a big stage at on Earth that was not in the final game. Kind of one of those weird parts of Halo 2's development where they ended up cutting a bunch of content that they were working on, and this was one of them being promoted for the game, and yeah, just did not make it into the final product, and that led to, despite that game, reviewing really well and selling really well, it was also a game that, in sort of hindsight, a lot of people were very critical of it because it feels like an unfinished game at a sense. Like they had to just kind of cut stuff together and figure out how to link it to make it a cohesive game as best they could, and that's because they cut up a bunch of stuff, and it seems like 343 Industries as well as some fans have managed to create a polished release of this that will only be on the Steam version as a mod, I believe. I don't know how you're necessarily going to get access to it. As here, the response to the demo at E3 2003 was electric. Nearly every Halo fan remembers that demo and where they were when they were first blinded by its majesty. Best of all, none of us ever would have expected that 20 plus years later, a group of passionate community modders would bring this demo to life as a full-fledged mission. Many technical issues kept this demo locked away for many years. However, thanks to the hard work by many people, the original assets and files for the Earth City demo were recovered. But getting the old content working in the newer versions of the Halo engine was very tricky. They had people working on this a bunch, and that is available now, I believe, as a free mod on Steam Workshop for PC players. Okay, so you get it through Steam Workshop, so it should be access there. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool to see, quote unquote, lost content that is finally getting restored. I kind of wish it was worked on a bit more and was available on Xbox, considering those were Xbox games, but it seems like as good as they could do at the time being. So there you go. You have the Master Chief Collection on Steam. You can check that out for some cool stuff. Let's see. Next up here, the Sony's financial quarter is up, and they've been talking about some numbers, and the most interesting one I found is that Astro Bot has sold 1.5 million units as of November 3rd, so that is great news. 37% of the buyers had not purchased any first-party software other than Astro Bot in the past 2 years, so that's a huge chunk of just new people buying the game, probably buying a PS5 just to check it out. So that is pretty neat stat-wise. That game is great. People should definitely check it out if they have not, because it is a really good platformer. So there you go for that. Let's see. Star Wars Outlaws. That's still going. It seems like they have announced, this is a weird thing. I don't know how many games have ever had this, where they have a new director for the game. Not often do you get a new director for a game post-launch. Let's see. Drew Reckner is the new creative director. As they continue to work on it and make it a better game. Post-launch, he shared 3 areas the team behind it wants to focus on improving in the months ahead, which is weird because I believe all of them are core concepts in the game. As I mentioned, the first key area of improvement is the combat. Second key area is stealth. And the third key area is the character controls, which is like those are the three main parts of the game. How did you guys release this game and being like, well, we need to improve the biggest parts of the game?
Mm-hmm.
They're not good enough, and it's like, all right, this is a hell of a game. It's still a cool game, but it's also, boy, they're spending a lot of time on this, hoping to get get over the hill here and get it selling well, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. And I'm sure these updates will definitely help, but also they may have to start putting it on big sales, which Black Friday is coming up, so I assume it'll be on sale.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would recommend like $40, just cut right to a cheap price.
Yeah.
'Cause I imagine you get a bunch of people jumping on for that, but because otherwise, just doing like 20% is not going to do it for people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there you go. There's your Star Wars Outlaws update. Is that they're still working on it.
Yep.
But speaking of people working on games, we now knew a new Sega game is in the works from a
Mm-hmm.
franchise you may have wanted one in that has not had one in a while. Virtua Fighter.
Yeah, Virtua Fighter. There has not been a new Virtua Fighter in a hot minute, folks.
Yeah, the only ones we've had since what 5 was the early Xbox 360 and PS3 game.
Mm-hmm.
That's been it. They've been only doing like different versions of that both had more single player or more multiplayer stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's been it, and that's almost 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it seems like they are working on a new Virtua Fighter game. As the executive vice president and head of Sega's global transmedia group
Mm-hmm.
has said in a new interview, saying, so we have a suite of titles in development right now that fall into that legacy bucket, which we announced last year at the Game Awards: Crazy
Mm-hmm.
Taxi, Jet Set Radio, Streets of Rage, Shinobi, and we have another Virtual Fighter being developed. And so all that's very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And in certain instances, we're also doing animation series or live action films to augment that and be part of those roadmaps.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that could be cool. I'm sure they're very early in that development, so probably
Yeah.
still a few more years yet to see anything about that. But
Yeah. It's gonna be neat because Virtua Fighter essentially is the well, obviously it's the godfather of all 3D fighting games. It was the first of all of them, but
yeah,
it's also the godfather of the technical fighting game as well.
yeah,
Um, so you know that, but I mean, you have to understand we've been through a couple generations of consoles since the last mainline Virtua Fighter title was released. So you know, it's going to be interesting to see, you know, what they're going to do with that. Um,
yeah,
and you know, like what characters are going to be making a comeback? What, you know, are we going to find some new ones? And just a lot of stuff. And you know, considering that like a lot of these like big comeback fighting games, like you know the Street Fighter games did, I wouldn't be surprised if they end up like loading it up with like a bunch of like nostalgia materials, like an in-game museum or something like that, or collectible stuff like that. Um,
yeah. That would be nice because it's been so long since we've had
yeah,
the last one or any sort of way to play any previous games. It's
you know,
necessary at this point.
yeah, pretty much. If you want to, I mean, like really these days, the best way to play an old Virtua Fighter is basically to play Yakuza.
Yeah,
Because they always put an old Virtua Fighter game in the arcades and the Yakuza games.
or find one of those collections.
Yeah, or one of those collections. What's also going to be fascinating is, you know, but because the thing people have to remember is, you know, Virtua Fighter has always been a hit with the fighting game crowd, and it's always been sort of a fixture of arcades over here in the West. But in Japan, Virtua Fighter has been an institution for decades, and you know there is so much, you know, Virtua Fighter material that we never got over here. Um, so you know they've got a real they've got like a real chance here to, you know, not only put out a new Virtua Fighter title, but load that title with so many of the pieces explaining Virtua Fighter's legacy as a
Yeah.
franchise. Everything from like, the little like gotcha toys that you could get from like Sega gotcha machines, the anime, the various pieces of merchandise that they've put out over the years, just all that stuff. The spin-offs, because there's been a bunch of Virtua Fighter spin-offs aside from the main title. But yeah, I'm definitely interested in seeing what they'll do with it.
Yeah. I think especially in this day and age, more and more of these games are having better sort of user onboarding systems
Mm-hmm.
that will benefit Virtual Fighter
Mm-hmm.
because the onboarding has been one of its issues over the years,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of the daunting nature of trying to get into
Mm-hmm.
those games for how technical they can be
Mm-hmm.
versus your average like Tekken or Street Fighter that you can kind of button mash your way through, especially as they've added more
Mm-hmm.
options, the easier control methods, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And yeah, they can obviously play a lot on Sega history stuff, especially if they have some more single player modes, which would be good to have, especially for the way that the series legacy is on that stuff with
Mm-hmm.
Virtua Fighter 4, making a big deal of that with AI characters that you kind of trained and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that is some good news. It'll be interesting to see something more substantial out of them on that front versus just yet another way to sell Virtua Fighter 5 again.
Yeah. Also, just this would be like one of the great instances where they can finally show people, oh, believe it or not, Virtua Fighter actually does have a backstory. Like it does actually have a plot.
Yeah.
It's just they never ever show it in the games. But you guys, if you're gonna do Virtua Fighter 6, you guys, Sega, you got a chance to do something really funny here for once.
Yeah. They can very much do like a Mortal Kombat and do a bit of a reboot and focus more on the story.
Mm-hmm. They could. They don't have to, but they could.
Yeah. Kind of make it a good entry point for people
Mm-hmm.
to get into it. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as we said, like Sega likes their collections, and it seems like
Mm-hmm.
they really uh, want to do more collections because they are delisting a bunch of them
Mm-hmm.
right now, or they will be here on December 6th, delisting a bunch of their classic video games on Xbox, PlayStation, and
Mm-hmm.
Switch and Steam. Steam, particularly, I think has a few dozen games here. It's up to
Mm-hmm.
about 60 total games across these various storefronts, which includes a bunch of. Yeah, this list is longer than it actually is because it's the Steam collection. There allows you to buy a bunch of games piecemeal
Mm-hmm.
from their like Genesis and Master System collections and all that. So it's a bunch of those kind of games there. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe those collections that are on PlayStation, Switch, and Xbox are also being delisted. So if
Mm.
you own them, you're fine. But
Yeah.
if you want those uh, games, you should definitely be grabbing them.
Yeah.
This also includes the Dreamcast collection that has a Crazy Taxi and a few other games there. I think it's the Sega Bass Fishing,
Mm-hmm.
Space Channel 5 Part 2. Let's see what other ones were in that collection. I think that one also had Nights into Dreams, even though that's not a Dreamcast game.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not doing any other Saturn games, so they're just like, fuck it, whatever. Who cares? Yeah, and Jet Set Radio,
Mm.
where it's like, yeah, those are decent versions. I would say the Crazy Taxi one is a bad. I don't think Sega has done a good version of Crazy Taxi after the Dreamcast versions.
Yeah.
Um, as somebody that's played those games a lot, the controls are very exact there,
Mm-hmm.
and
Well, I mean, because it was an arcade game, like it was an arcade racer, and though that game was because the whole point of the game was you're trying to get to this other area as fast as you can with a very unwieldy taxi cab. So the controls are very precise, and basically every other version they've put out after the Dreamcast version has been hot garbage.
Yeah, because the thing is, you are reliant on some of the special moves like the crazy boost and that kind of stuff that
Mm-hmm.
requires you essentially like switch into reverse and back into gas real quick, and you can't do that as easily on the like PSN and XBLA and Steam versions of those games.
Mm-hmm.
And that's if you can't do that easily, then you fucked up.
Mm.
Um, but also like things like they did that Dreamcast collection. It's like, oh, you just have Crazy Taxi 1,
Mm-hmm.
and you have Jet Set Radio 1, and you have Space Channel 5 Part 2. And it's like, where the hell are these other games? There's a bunch of Dreamcast games.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Sonic stuff they've put out everywhere because people will buy those games, any of those
Mm-hmm.
games. Though not everything. They have not brought every Sonic game out there, but that's the thing they are definitely working on because they put out a number of Sonic collections. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, um, it seems like they are delisting all this stuff. I assume because they're going to be doing better collections,
Mm.
um, especially now that the expectation is for rewind and save states and all that kind of stuff. Though I think the Genesis collections had that stuff in there, the
Mm.
at least save states. But yeah, like you should have a Crazy Taxi collection with all three games. You don't necessarily need all three because third game sucks, but the first two are good. You just
Mm-hmm.
need to properly emulate them because those are some of the best games, and I would also say they're hugely influential because you wouldn't have the Burnout series without that because that introduced the whole risk reward mechanic where you
Mm-hmm.
are trying to get close to other vehicles and buildings and such and getting jumps and all that for bonus cash. That is
Mm-hmm.
all very much what Burnout is, just for boost instead of cash. All that. So yeah, there's a lot of good Sega stuff here from both the Saturn and the Dreamcast that deserve to get more of a better collection and better accessibility here in 2024. And I assume that they are delisting this stuff because they're gonna put out new collections. That is Sega.
Mm.
Much like many other companies, they got to have a retro collection out there at some point,
Mm-hmm.
every so often, or else they're not making enough money. I imagine these are old enough that they are not making that much money.
Nope.
So they're going to probably put out some new ones at some point, especially as they've announced new versions of Crazy Taxi and Jet Set Radio and all that. So that stuff would fit in well with what their current big push is. So yeah, there you go. There's your second Sega news, and we got
Mm.
one more. Sega has sold Amplitude Studios to its developers,
Mm.
to at least some of the members of its internal team. So now that they are an independent entity, they can work on their own games again. I'm assuming that they own uh, the rights to that stuff, but I'm not
Mm-hmm.
100% sure if they mention that here. Um, yeah, they do mention Amplitude is now owned by members of the internal team, meaning that the future of our studio and games is staying in the hands of those who know them best.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine they're the makers of the Endless series, which has been a bunch of different like roguelike kind of games. And they also made the Humankind, which is the Civilization style 4X game.
Yep.
Um, that was pretty solid from what I've heard
Mm-hmm.
for that. But yeah, that's going to be cool for them to kind of strike out on their own again and
Mm-hmm.
be able to have more control over their destiny versus being chained to a big corporation that could
Mm-hmm.
decide on a whim that you're not making enough money for them.
Mm.
And this may end up being the best of the option. I'll shut down and lay it off, and having their IP stuck to the Sega cupboards of old shit they don't do anything with anymore,
Mm-hmm.
versus be able to go out on their own and kind of keep working on the things they. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's as good a news as we've had on this front in a while. So there you go. But yeah, next up here we've got some Nintendo news. 3 stories here,
Yep.
varying from good to weird.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, in the wake of the election going on, Nintendo basically posted a tweet here. Financial results stuff they've done. They posted this tweet saying, "This is Furukawa. At today's corporate management policy briefing, we announced that the Nintendo Switch software will also be playable on the successor to Nintendo Switch.
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo Switch Online will also be available on the successor to Nintendo Switch as well. Further information about the successor to Nintendo Switch, including its compatibility with Nintendo Switch, will be announced at a later date." I think this is the tweet with the most mentions of Nintendo Switch that has ever existed. But basically, uh, all of your Nintendo Switch games you've purchased on your Switch will work on the successor, and Nintendo Switch Online will also be available there. Whether that has the exact same perks,
Mm-hmm.
we don't know, but I would assume so, considering it's mostly just emulating old games and allowing you to play online.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume they're going to do that as well, but this at least gives us a little bit of more concrete information here
Mm-hmm.
on that stuff, which is great
Mm-hmm.
because we have no other information. It's probably out next year, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But that's been pretty much it. We assume it's going to be kind of probably more like a Steam Deck
Yeah.
versus the Switch is currently, so a little bit bigger,
Mm-hmm.
bulkier, but they'll probably make it pretty sturdy,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll probably be more expensive
Yep.
because that shit ain't getting cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's basically it from this bit
Mm-hmm.
of news. What you were hoping to hear, besides a release date or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
uh, we got that. So that's the good news.
Mm-hmm.
Next up here, the Power World lawsuit that Nintendo has. Uh, Pocket Pair has put out some information on that, some details,
Mm-hmm.
particularly that. Let me see. Yeah, they said the plaintiffs claim that Power World, released by us on January 19th, 2024,
Mm-hmm.
infringes upon the following 3 patents held by plaintiffs and are seeking an injunction against the game and compensation for a portion of the damages incurred between the date of registration of the patents and the date of filing of this lawsuit. Then they list them out, the 3 different patents, um, and dates and all that, which I believe is a little bit misleading because I think a lot of these patents were filed in 2021,
Mm-hmm.
despite them claiming these were filed after the game's launch. They may have updated them, whatever the ability to do that is in Japan, because these are Japanese patents. So you can also look at the US versions of the patents, but those aren't the same thing. And yeah, they're related to certain uh, gameplay mechanics to them, which are things that I think most of us would agree that shouldn't be really patented. I think that can be patented. Um, but yeah, they are essentially claiming that they have been infringed upon these patents. Like, one involves essentially the mechanic of throwing a Pokeball
Mm-hmm.
to catch characters or Pokemon. And let me see. Yeah, and then the second one is about catching with that. The first one's just the act of throwing it, I guess, and what that can do. And the third is about riding creatures in the open world.
Mm-hmm.
So very basic stuff that is like things that Pokemon's done for a while. So
Mm.
not really too surprising that they would have potential patents on that stuff. But yeah, not really too much more to say about this because
Yeah.
it seems like the amount they are requesting is like 5 million yen, which is not
Mm-hmm.
that much money, especially for how much that game is made. Yeah, 5 million each between the Nintendo and Pokemon
Mm-hmm.
Company, so 10 million total, which is about 33,000 each, $33,000 US each. The big thing they're looking for is an injunction to stop the game from being available for sale.
Mhm.
So that's the big thing. The other stuff is like minor things that I assume they would be more willing to just pay money and move on,
Mhm.
and probably argue that the stopping sale of the game was thing to require. So
Mhm.
I'm sure they'll come to some sort of settlement just for money. But yeah, that's kind of the thing that's gotten people angry. But it's like this all deals with Japanese patent stuff, and
Mm.
I don't think any of us are really well equipped to comment on that stuff. It's
Mhm.
just like it's silly that you can patent this stuff, but yeah, that's about all they have to really come at the developers for.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's your update on the Power Word lawsuit. That'll probably be happening next year or something. I assume if they're going to follow through and go to court, we'll see. But that's about as much as we know on that lawsuit.
Mhm.
And then the last Nintendo bit of news here involves another lawsuit, but with a much less sympathetic subject here.
Mhm.
This involves a streamer that is named Jesse Kayan,
Mhm.
um, who's streamed Nintendo Switch games for years, and has been now the subject of a lawsuit requesting potentially up to $7.5 million in damages
Mm.
because he was streaming pirated games before the games launched. I'd be like, well, how do you know it's pirated? Because he repeatedly sent out links to people that requested them for
Yep.
where to go to do this stuff and download these
Mhm.
games and all that. And like recently did this for Mario and Luigi Brothers ship. Seemed to like each time his account got banned, he just created a new one.
Yep.
Yeah, it seems potentially as much as 50 times in the last 2 years,
Mhm.
seeking about $150,000 in damages for each instance of alleged copyright infringement. The legal complaint reads here all of these streams were unauthorized and all compromise Nintendo's legitimate pre release marketing. They also promote and encourage downloading of pirated copies of unpublished games. Defendant streams often consist merely of him playing Nintendo's leaked games without commentary for extended periods of time. And he would stream this on Kick, I think, once he got banned from Twitch. So that's a whole fun part of it.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, he might not have elicited the full fury of Nintendo's legal department had he not come up with the bright idea of just haunting the company.
Mhm.
Um, the lawsuit claims that shortly after the company had his monetized YouTube channel and other accounts shut down, the streamer told Nintendo he would help find newer and updated copies of the abandoned Switch emulators to help them pirate games. Apparently, wrote in one of his posts, "Love y'all. Capitalism is cancer. My channel is being deleted for sharing gameplay videos. This is your reward."
Mhm.
Yeah, he was a fairly small like social media person and streamer and whatnot, but
Mhm.
certainly seemed like he just did this continually out of spite. So
Mhm.
yeah, this is a hell of a thing to do. Very much a fuck around and find out kind of thing.
Mhm.
He played stupid games with Nintendo, and now he's gonna win his stupid prize. I don't know that he necessarily needs to lose $7.5 million, but that's gonna be his problem.
Mhm.
So yeah, there you go.
Yeah. That's stupid shit.
Yep. So yeah, that's that. And we'll end on a bit of a better uh note here. Take Two has sold Private Division to an undisclosed buyer.
Mhm.
So that's a better outcome than say shutting it down and laying off a bunch of people, though a bunch of people have left in the process, so
Mhm.
not too much better. Um, but yeah, we don't know who's bought this. Maybe it's former people that ran Private Division
Yeah.
had some money to use for this. I don't know.
Mm.
Maybe it's the former Annapurna Interactive people who with their
Maybe.
money to buy them. So yeah, this includes the Private Division label, all of its live and unreleased projects.
Mhm.
Take Two Interactive will continue to support Moon Studios' action RPG No Rest for the Wicked. which
Mhm.
launched in early access earlier this year. It's
Mhm.
planned for a full release on PS5 and Xbox and PC late. So, well, probably not this year, probably next year.
Mm.
Um, yeah, currently private division and developer What at Workshop are planning to release the Tales of the Shire, the Lord of the Rings game
Mhm.
for pretty much everything next year. So that seems like one of the things they have acquired the rights to publish that.
Mhm.
But yeah, it seems like Roll 7 and Intercept games that were shut down earlier this year are still shut down. But I assume they get the rights to those games that they were working on. So yeah, because if they get the uh, of its live and unreleased projects, that would presumably include all the previous stuff they published that Take Two is not taking ownership of. So yeah, good that somebody more interested in publishing indie games has purchased this stuff, and
Mhm.
maybe we'll find out who that entity is at some point.
Mm.
Um, but we'll. So yeah, that is that's the news there. So yeah, as I said, not a ton of like big news here.
Mhm.
Um, some interesting stuff, but more just things continuing to happen as we wait
Mhm.
for some big news and big releases and all that. So yeah, that is pretty much it for this week. Gonna check if we got anything big coming out later this or this week here.
Mhm.
Let me see. There we go. Farming Simulator 25, Neo Harbor Rescue Squad. Oh yeah, The Rise of the Golden Idol. That's out this week. That's what I'm really looking forward to.
Mhm.
There's also Tetris Forever, that cool collection from Digital Eclipse. Let's see, the Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D remake is out this week, so there's that. If you like your big RPGs, there's Lego
Mhm.
Horizon Adventures. If you like your Lego games,
Yep.
let's see, Funko Fusion for the Switch and PS4.
Mhm.
You have money to burn, I guess. Yeah, not really too much here, but
Mhm.
some interesting stuff you check out. Yeah, so there you go. I think that's going to do it for this week. So yeah, thank you, Brandon, for joining this week.
Always.
Let's see if you enjoy the show. For let friends and family check it out, and select strangers that are also relieved that election bullshit is over for the most part. I guess there's still some
Mhm.
more bullshit, but at least the worst of it is over about the election. But still got worse stuff coming up. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in. Hope you have a good week ahead. We will see you all next time. Have a good one.